Wholeness and balanced vibration to everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the 2012 show. My name is James Sevan Bomar III. I am your host, and we are on, again, another adventure across the interverse and the universe, and seeing how that works, as we call it, micro-macro vision of what is taking place on Earth. Today's show is an adept show. That's why it was rated adept. So the conversation that we will have today and the content that we will discuss will be of the deepest nature, since we have to dig deep in order to pull out what is hidden, in order to get things revealed properly. And it's important for us now to make a decision as adepts, if that's what you've become, or if you need to train yourself and educate yourself more as a seeker and get more of the information and see how things work before you say, I'm an adept. And so before I begin this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check in the chat room, and I'm going to see if I'm being heard clear enough, which is the situation that we have to do before we launch these shows. We do have to do a sound test. So I'm asking anyone in the chat room, if you're hearing this conversation and it's loud and clear, to just indicate that you can hear. Great. Thanks, Vince. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here right away. Of course, the show title today is The Secret of All Societies. And that's a big thing, because that means it would hinge or be the hinge for why you have so many secret societies, or even just societies in the world. Because many people are not realizing that beyond the secret societies, there are other major organizations, such as the Red Cross, that are not looked at as secret societies, but are functioning and doing things all around the world, and also handing out spiritual propaganda. So in that sense alone, if the Red Cross pushes a Christian pamphlet, then they are also rolled into the whole thing, so of a secret society. So let's just, for a moment, ask ourselves, what is the underpinning to all of this? And for us to do that, we also begin your quest to open up inner self, to fully realize who you are, and to live in the magnitude in which you were created. So what this will be about first is, just like what the universal current shows, we will be going from the bottom up. Many people have deep things hidden from them in society, and also deep things hidden inside themselves that they don't really understand or don't even know is there. So by the end of this conversation, there will be a very clear, and I would just say affluent energy flowing through at least your base chakra area, and that will begin to power up your whole system. So let us begin. I will just let everyone know that during this conversation, if for some reason the call begins to break up, don't worry. There is a clear copy of the show being recorded in real time from a separate audio device, and this allows, after the show, within a day, we generally get up a clear copy of the show. So if you can't hear what I'm saying for whatever reason, don't think you lost the secret or mystery forever and it'll never be transmitted. You can just go to the recordings on the Resistance website, which is at www.resistance2010.com. You can go to the Resistance website and you can get those recordings. Likewise, before we begin, I would like to let everyone know that daily we do have group meetings where we tackle one particular topic. I'm often present in those meetings at least 3 times a week, and we also get those recordings up to allow it to be made available. So if for some reason you can't make it to those meetings, then you can get those archives and still upgrade yourself with that knowledge. So let us begin here. I would say that I assume at this point, because I never am completely sure about what's going to happen in my life from day to day. I really have a lot of extra components going on with just what I'm doing mentally, spiritually, and physically, so I leave myself open for the surprise. So I'm constantly learning new things. And at this point, it seems, especially from what I've done in the past, that I am to rise as a teacher. And it's a very heavy responsibility. I'll say that first, because when you become an instructor, if you happen to cause a ripple effect that leads people in a negative direction, you will fear, yes, the energy that may be pushed back at you. Because oftentimes we say things and this angers people, And then they vent that anger out on us in whatever way they vent their anger. So when you become a teacher, especially if you're teaching something that people don't know, there's always going to be an initial stubbornness by the individual to accept what just is. So I want to start this off by saying that when I go into the world and I teach, and if that's your calling to go into the world and teach, let me move this microphone here a little bit so I can kind of get right in the microphone here. If you're going to go in the world and teach, you have to generally use some level of format or some system that you can keep saying and keep practicing, so that way you can shorten how you can explain what is going on and what is the meaning to life and all the W's that you say, the what, when, where, whys, all of that. The wonderland of the mind. When you want to explain that to someone, you want to keep compressing it as small as possible so you don't waste their time. So in order to do that, you have to first start off with a particular pattern. And what I'm now calling this pattern is the universal system. It's what's written in the stars. And I will first say, though, that how that gets to you is it has to be shipped. Shipping. If you notice, everything that you receive arrives to you some way. Like I'm sending you now this message from inside of myself, and it's arriving over these microphones, over this computer, and over your computer, and it's getting to you. But so these electronic devices right now are responsible for shipping. Now, they keep telling you, especially within the 2012 New Age lore, that we're expecting ships. Ships should be coming, spaceships. I'm telling you that there was never anything outside of us except for what we brought here. Everything else, the limitless, is inside, and I'll explain that. Outside in the physical world that you call 3D, which was accessed through a portal, everything that you see here came through that portal and was brought here, from the trees to the birds and many of the different things. That's anything that contains a seed or egg. So what you're literally dealing with here is you have to realize that everything that you are has not yet arrived on this dimension, 3D. You have to call the shipper, meaning that you have to go within yourself and pull out what you need in 3D. For instance, people who make music, they bring out from the inside of them, they bring out, how can I put it? They bring out what is, I would just say, what is packed up. And they bring you this song, and it comes from inside of them, and then they write it down, and now their song is in the dimension. Their tune, their vibration is now in the dimension. They unpacked it. So there's multiple things that you can unpack, and this is why when we say, okay, there's reptilian beings that are sentient running around, there are horn gods running around, when we say that, what we're really saying is that certain people have chosen to go down the non-linear path of our development and have bought out some of the primordial energies and unpacked them into 3D. So anyone that unpacks the brute strength of the force that it took to create Earth, of course is going to be more powerful on an Earth plane if they had a chance to unpack that into 3D, and no one else even understood. I guess how society is today, no one understands even how to do something like that, or something like that can be done. So this symbol of basically unfettered strength is the symbol of the bull. And this is where we begin the entire story today, because we're going to begin in the Muladhara chakra, which is red. It is the root chakra. Now, I'm actually putting literature together on this that is going to be like a study guide, but you have to understand that the reason why we begin with the Muladhara chakra rather than the chakra in the feet, because remember, there is a chakra that the chakra that we're speaking of is located around your genital or reproductive area. So what about the feet? Don't they have chakras? Chakras are like gears. So everything that needs to move has a chakra. Every joint has a chakra there. It's just a gear. So it controls your motion, your dimension, the dimension of that particular part of you. So what I've come to discover from the ancient teachings is that Below the center area, or what you call the torso, which is the torus of the body, it was created first through a torsion field. They've already showed you this in metaphysics, but the main part of your body that was created first was your torso area. And of course, because that's where all the organs and things are, those things need to be put together first. So this is why Taurus became known in the bull's horns, of course, in the seven sisters of the Pleiades being inside of the Taurus constellation, Betelgeuse, Aldebaran, Rigel, the G5 suns, the larger suns that make our sun look like a marble. All of this is coming from Taurus. So now you begin to understand the ancient symbolism behind the first letter, which is A. We're just going to keep rolling right into this. And you have to bear with this. It's going to take about 3-4 weeks of continuous messages about this because the content is vast. It's everything. I've discovered fully now that language is astronomy. If you have a proper language, it's actually astronomy. It's explaining to you what's going on in the sky, but what's going on in the sky is also explaining to you the sequence of your creation. So the letter A in the ancient languages, now let's first look at Arabic. We start with Arabic, which of course has the letter Aleph. We go to Hebrew, and we find they have the same first letter, Aleph. We go through the Futhark ruins, and actually let me grab the name here from my other notes. But we find that they have another word, but when you go to check what that word means, that word is fehu in Futhark rune, Celtic Druid knowledge. It means bull. If you go to Hebrew, it means bull. If you go to Arabic, it means cattle, Aleph. So right off the bat, when I discovered that, I said, okay, I'm onto something here. I'm onto something big. I've now come to some evidence that shows that language as a cabal is not just any circle, but actually the circle in the wheel of the zodiac. And so this automatically got me to thinking right away that if anyone alters the language, like puts a P where a D used to be or the vibration of the D and moves that around and then teaches that language to someone, they actually make them believe they can make them believe that things started a different way. They can even just pretty much make them confused because once you start removing pieces of an arc, you have to put those pieces exactly where they go. Like with the pyramids, the miracle with the pyramids is that each piece is a different size, but it was cut perfectly, but each piece is a different shape. So if you remove that piece, nothing else will go there but that piece. You can't take a piece from the other side of the pyramid and put it in there. It won't fit. It's perfect mathematics. So what I found out is the beginning of this particular segment of what mankind is experiencing in woman, especially with all of the drama, is coming with the entry of the moon. Now, the moon, our sun, or actually our planet, according to the information, has 5 hours a day. That's how fast it was spinning. This is what they recorded from looking into the sea and looking at coral that have the same thing going on as trees. Every cycle, they get a ring. They looked at some coral and noticed there was 400 days in the year. But when they really tested it, they realized it was because the Earth was spinning faster. So now, when you're spinning fast, as you know with a top, you have less wobble. So this means that the state that Earth was first in, that's somewhat of a perfected spin, spinning that fast. However, what the moon did when it moved in is, because it was spinning in an opposite direction and still continues to, it begins to slow down the Earth. So in our reference point, our start point, it starts with us having 24 hours a day. But remember, there was something totally different going on with the time frames before man and woman were aware of themselves here. So now we're going to dig very deep because, of course, we were here because we're everywhere. I told you there's everything inside of you. It's limitless. But you have to understand that in the netherworld, which is the places below your waist, in the netherworld, It's only animal trait, meaning the actual elemental itself. What was used to actually, I just call it the animalistic nature's force elementals. There's no chakra. Only above that area, in the torso area, you find the chakras, because the chakras are wheels of time. They're for development. The netherworld was for waste. Look at the word, waste, your waste. Waste, meaning when you have over of what you need, especially in your body, the waist goes around your waist. Increase your waist, like 30 inches, 35 inches. You have more waist. And this, of course, is because the Muladhara chakra, when it's blocked, it doesn't process waste properly. I'm going to show you how the spiritual, mental, and physical system tie in together. If you don't have a functioning Muladhara chakra because it's been closed and locked upside down, which is known as Samael, it's in itself inverted. If it's spun and then locked, you can't process waste. Now, remember, the lower worlds have this burden, for better lack of words, of processing the waste of higher worlds. This is just how the system is configured. The lower part of the body is, of course, where your feces comes out. The body is a universal map. It is a map of the universe. So this lets you know there's lower parts of the universe or lower dimensions of the universe. There's less control there. And their responsibility is to carry the burden of the things that are stacked on top of it. And that's why, again, you get this horn god symbolism, which is of a bull, pulling a burden. That it has become strong and it has muscles because of this burden. See, I'm going to show you also how when they interpret these archetypes to you, they make it a monster. Something that's going to kill you, destroy you. You begin to fear it, and then when you see it everywhere, which the bull was always a symbol of nature and the strength of nature, then you become afraid of nature. See, this is how they play with archetypes. So, the cow's horns, let me explain that. A cow can have horns. The aurochs and the urus, which is the original name of the being that was domesticated to later on become known as the cow, the female has horns. And if you go to Google, and I've sourced some links, you go to Google, can a female cow have horns? You'll find out, yes, several species of them, especially earlier species before domestication, the female had horns. So when they show you horns, it doesn't always mean a male. Because there is a hidden side. And let me first now get back into the moon. Because the moon, or actually the letter M, is the symbol of horns, obviously. You can look at it like, okay, I can get that. I can go with you for a moment on that may be horns, or mountains, or anything else that starts with M, like mass, and milk, and mammo, and ma, matrix. You can go crazy with the M words. You see Madonna doing the double M on the Super Bowl ritual, you're wondering what's going on. You see Rick Ross doing Maybach music, you're wondering what's going on. You see it in the east, the west, north, south. M's everywhere. What is it? That's the secret to all societies. So the network of M, which of course is the moon and Mars, I can give you a plethora of explanation right now on what is going on this planet just through these two symbols. But also what I can do is I can show you how to free up energy I show you how to basically take yourself out of hell. You're locked up in the Muladhara chakra. Because the Muladhara chakra corresponds with when you're between 1 and 7 years old. And the important part about this time as a child is most of all the archetypes are introduced to the child in these phases. Fear. If the child loses the mother in the store, you can even still recall that feeling of when you lost your parent in the store or something and you were just scared. You thought that you were never going to find them. So that kind of fear. You can also recall watching something as silly as Freddy Krueger at that age. Your parents may be allowing you to watch it, or you sneaking in and watching it. Jason or something, some scary movie. Then you can't even turn the lights off. So you recall all this during 1 to 7, actually, and your parents also show you what's right and what's wrong. You get your first spanking. Don't do that. So all of this is what serves to actually lock you in a prison, because later on in life, you built your life based on a foundation of improper explanation of what took place with you between 1 and 7 years old, when you were introduced to, quote unquote, the devil, the hard course side of life. So if anyone wants to talk about conquering and overthrowing the devil, we should do it within. And we should do that in a way of knowledge, meaning we don't stoop to their level. These are war gods. They're from Mars, these horn gods. So war is not what we're going to use as a tool. We're going to use knowledge and wisdom. As they say, surely, we're talking about Kundalini now, so surely they can't stand to dance with Kundalini. Kundalini is vibration. All foundations shake when vibrations start. This is also what allows you to free up energy that's stuck like a pipeline inside of you. The Kundalini just stuck, bottlenecking in the lower area, causing disease and decay. So, of course, this is the D plane. It's half of the circle, half of your body. The letter D is half of a circle. So that midpoint of your body would be the half of D. Now, this is also why the entity that lives and corresponds to this area in your Mudalara chakra rules over all the netherworlds. This is also what you get in the mythology, that this devil being rules over, he's the king of beasts, and he rules over all the beasts. They're saying, as it's positioned in your body, over the elementals is this horn being. Now, look at the female reproductive system. In the ovaries, now you see Ram, or Mar, Ma. And I told you, when you're talking about words, if you want to know, well, does a word mean the same thing if I turn it around and it makes a different spelling? I mean, it makes a different sound, but it's the same spelling. It means the difference between the two is one is internal and the other is external. And as I said, I would explain that in the term is internal. Backwards, it's Ma, M-A-U. So, M-U-A-M, or I'm looking more in my mind, and I'm not accessing anymore the other database with letters and numbers in it. I've moved to another system. So let me just keep moving through this so that way everyone can become clear on what that minotaur that they're going to have to wrestle in the labyrinth. Now, the pentagram is known as the labyrinth. It's the endless circle. It's like in a maze, you're trying to find out where you're going. Maze starts with Ma. In the middle of the maze, there's a minotaur. You see, in the code of Mithras wrestling the bull. You see in the constellation Taurus, but Orion right there with the club. You see in the tale of Perseus, he has to go into the labyrinth and he deal with the minotaur. In the Hindu teachings, they say its name Sat, its name is truth. What they're saying is, no, Americans, don't think that we're just talking about another fluffy tale of yours that we're going to end in a good story. We're telling you that once you know this, then you'll know the truth to everything. Now, can you handle the truth and move on from it? So A is the male bull, Ara. So the second stage in the language, Hebrew, Arabic, and Rune, and the reason why I had to bring the runes in, because it holds the same. And with all the other races of people, especially the melanin recessive people, Polish, Irish, Russian, all those individuals, those are the masters of their teaching, the masters of their knowledge, the Druids. So here's their language. The rune Uruz, which is the second rune, is also a female bovid, which means a female cow. So the interesting part about this is that now you're going to start getting a massive view at the matrix. Like, where is the matrix? I mean, is it in the Milky Way? Could it be in the womb of a larger being? Well, of course. I mean, when we start in the matrix in our mother's stomach, we're in the womb of a larger being. This is not science fiction, people. So you'll find that when it gets into Hebrew, they call it Bet, which means house to them. Why? The matrix is a house. This is our house. We're living here on earth. Now, because B sounds like V, in most language, a B and a V are they can be interchanged with each other. The word also can be spelled vet, Z-E-T. So what is a vet on our planet? When I say, hey, take them to the vet, it's a place that takes care of animals. Matrix takes care of animals. Oh, wait a minute, we're not animals. Some people say, I'm not an animal. Well, wait a minute. I've seen humans come out with tails. I've already learned that the human body genetically is of composite beings of the flora and fauna that the environments that we've existed in and that we've crossbred with. The spirit is another matter entirely. But if you're talking about flesh, yes, animal. So, let's continue. Now, we're going to start seeing, and I'm taking you just through religion, you're going to start seeing how the race begins, the racism. Because now, when it finally crosses over into Arabic, and I'm not saying that either of these languages were first. Actually, the fire languages were first. Because we still have a whole nother tale about fire beings. Another show, when we get to that chakra. However, on this particular chakra that we're speaking of, and then when we finally get into Arabic, it comes out as Ba. Now, Ba, for many people know that Ba means soul, as in the word Kaaba. It's almost like saying soul, soul, if you don't know what the difference between a Ka and a Ba is. And of course, the difference between a Ka and a Ba is one is of, I'm still trying to decipher for sure if a Ka is either a dog spirit or a snake spirit. This is the last in the etymology where it's coming down to, so I'll just leave it at that. The Ba spirit is the spirit of a bull or a cow, Kaaba. So when it comes out in abjad, which is the Kabbalah of Arabic, they say it means impure dot. Okay? Now, anyone who starts to misinterpret this now is going to become sexist. Because if you believe the dot is impure, now the first, of course, let me take you again to the first people who discovered this knowledge understood it for its vastness. So when they seen something as purity, from the word we use as purity, when it was complete, when it was divided, it meant impurity. It was just one or the other to them. So when the second thing came out, it was known as, to the Arabs, impure dot. Now, the impure dot is what they are circumambulating every Hajj. As they tell you, they say that the Mecca is black, the stone is black because of the sins of the world, have turned it black. It's the impure dot. But because it's a cube, it's also a matrix, because a matrix is a cube. It's that Star of David, that flower of life that they keep talking about. Wombs within wombs, circles within circles, seers within seers. So now you start to get, well, okay, that's what's going on, because Allah, his name starts with A. Everyone knows he's a bull god that's in the know. The ones that don't are really the infidels that are not guided. Because if you understood the abjad right away, it told you Ab means father. So it's telling you what it is. It's the alphabet. Now, notice if we have A, B, all the way to Z, why is only A and B in alphabet? Alphabet means A and B. It's because they don't say alpha zeta. They don't tell you that. They tell you alpha beta. Why? Because the only thing that matters in the language is the first two letters. In binary world, it's only a dual plane, on and off. You do or you don't. So you only need A and B. Male cow, female cow. Then, and I'm just showing you the beginning. Remember, we're deep in the root chakra. Like, I'm talking about the beginning. I'm not talking about where you are now, because some people are back there like, well, I didn't, that wasn't, not me. I'm made of smokeless fire. That's where some people are with the conversation. But the reality is I'm showing you the building blocks. Matter. Because the knowledge that we had was how to formulate matter in geometry. The beings that later on came to exist here understood from the beginning that it was all formed and shaped and fashioned. And that was the school for them. They sought to understand how it was formed and shaped and fashioned. So if you landed on Earth, it was like, great, now if you liked it and what you saw, then you knew you were about to learn how to do it. This is the same thing in school. If you go to a course and you like that course and you see that job, you like that job, then you go and you take that and you're like, okay, I want to do that. That's what I want to do with my life. So when we saw Earth, the shine, then we're like, okay, I want to be able to create one of those too. And many of us still have that same personality where the moment we see something that we like, we want that. Sometimes we don't understand what it's going to take to get it, but that's what's called the lesson. So here's the lesson. The arc, notice the shape is like a bow or a bovid, like I told you before. The arc is the moon. That's where they're keeping all of the information of what has happened from sequential times on Earth, because 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, the Shah was staring up at the same moon that you're looking at. He was on his palace balcony, third eye open, and already realized that the moon was a vehicle. Anyone with a third eye looks at the moon on a full moon, you see chains moving through it. It's a vehicle. It's Uriel's will, I guess. It's the Urus again. So, the first thing that happened with mankind, especially the mankind, as far as them trying to understand where is their father, etc., is that many of the powerful kings looked to the moon and said, I want to go there. Bring the courtiers, bring the wise men, bring the magicians, tell me what is there. Because the sun wasn't the first idea. Because it was hot. And because these men were really material, they're like the first fathers. They're like still stone men when it comes to density, but very strong. So they said, oh, shoot, I'm not going to go to the sun. I'll burn up before I get there. But the moon looks like it's not too far away. So now, if we go to Sumerian times, because now I'm talking about times in which man forgot, the kings forgot. Now, because I'm speaking now of every man as a king, forgot what the sequence or the jump points were from this planet. What happened? So what happened is that the first zone was these entities known as Anunnaki. Anunnaki simply means really from the moon. From the moon, they came to Earth. Enki also means from the moon to Earth. Because the story goes is that they were on the moon and there was others on Venus, but we can't get into that today. And they were looking at Earth. And she was pleasing to them. This is actually the story in the beginning of the Bible. The Nephilim saw the daughters of women were the sons of God saw the daughters of man were exceedingly beautiful. Daughters of man. Now, who is man? So he's like, oh, well, no, that's me, man. I'm a man. Yeah, you are, but you need to understand who man is. What they're telling you in etymology is the daughters of man were all of the entities that live here on this planet. There was no differentiation between what we call man and what man was then. It was considered the whole thing. They started later on calling it manna, something they were supposed to eat, something they were supposed to mate with. Notice mate is an anagram for meat. It's the meta. Meta is the anagram for meat and mate. There is an entirely orgasmic sexual situation going on here on Earth, and because it's been dealing with its defunct limp papacy, known as the P, Everyone doesn't understand what's going on because the entire reality is constructed on a generation of two opposing energies interlacing with each other, one triangle and another triangle. Then they come into conflict, fire and water. Then what's generated is something in the middle, a point, bindu, steam, water, souls. So I'm going to clear up some of the Sumerian text for you for these people who keep misinterpreting it. It told them, there was other beings in Orion that told them it is time. Go to Earth. And they misinterpreted it. They told them to go to Earth, and they found gold, and then they were here trying to mine the gold to take it back to the planet. No, that was not the command. The command given forth to the Gigi were to go to Earth and to get it prepared for soul production. The gold. So, of course, the beings that came down, also known as Anunnaki, horn gods, were strong and tilled Earth, as they do today. Look at the cow and the bull, still tilling Earth. Man still uses them with, in the beginning, there was a symbol shaped like what a mason's tool is. The Masonic skull, compass and square was not used for measuring then. It was for him to hold the top of it and dig the point of it down in the ground, a symbol of an A, and then let the cow go forth and till it. So this is how there was two beings, as you can see. There is the archetype of man, and then there is this ox that is carrying the burden. Now, you'll learn later on that it has been the female part of it that we haven't seen. She's veiled. Let me tell you why she's veiled. You cannot see her face. She's on the other side of the moon. The moon has one side of it veiled, and I told you the moon is the arc. That's why they use the crescent, because the crescent moon means horns. But there's one side that we can't see because even in the custom today, they veil their women, so you cannot see them. And they fight so vehemently because they know Nanar Sin was first in this sector, meaning that from the time of Aries, the first zodiac sign, the horn god Ram ran forth. And he went right into the womb. He burst the vapor cloud. He split the planet. Let me explain to you. Earth, in order for Earth to exist, because space is a vacuum, especially of cold air, if you punch a hole in space, you have to plug it fast. Especially a large one. So back in the day, Earth was virgin. Meaning that these other beings, other entities that have not yet been identified, entered into it. This is now why menstruation is attached to the moon. Women's menstruation cycle, most of the time when they're synced up properly, is tapped in with the moon. It's Min in front of that. So who is Min? Go to Google. M-I-N. Everyone that go to Google and then go to Wikipedia. Everyone wants to believe them, even though they're changing up the information daily. They still have this correct. Min, M-I-N. If you type it in, and then type in Wikipedia behind it, you'll find, there we go, M-I-N, the God. And the main thing they show on this God, if you go look, is his penis. Because that is what occurred. The beings from the outside penetrated the womb known as the matrix. Now, when they penetrated the womb, Earth is a different womb than the woman archetype that we have on the planet now. Meaning that I told everyone before, if you start hating women because of the last date you had with one, you're in error. If you're starting to hate the feminine is very more like the lioness. Because the lioness can take in several males at one time. It can have several babies from different life forms at one time. Earth is hosting multiple life forms at one time because that was what they were calling the ones that came from the sky. They were the ones that came in with their seed. Now, notice all the terminology matches. So let's fast forward here. Because now that these entities are here, they're now tilling Earth. So, of course, this is now toil. Now Earth is groaning under the pain. This is the same thing as when a woman has to give birth. Earth is growing under the pain because they're developing her now. And so what also happens is a king comes forward. It's the first time Earth's ever had a king. Earth is a virgin. So king is Cain, is Khan, is coin, is Cohen. You can rewind that later and check it out. All those words mean the same thing. King, he strikes the coin. He regulates the currency. He wears the crown, and the crown is a horn. Crowns are horns. Or is it a crown of thorns? He's the sun god, as they call him. But who is his father? People they crack me up. They say, yeah, the sun's the biggest thing. Look at it. It's shining. I mean, they say, well, if you're calling it sun, then where's its father? Because I'm sure we'll probably get closer to the story because none of the sons seem to be telling the truth anymore. If you notice the movie, let me think of the movie with Matt Damon. He's running through, they're attempting to change and alter his future. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. But if you notice in that movie, every person that is appearing as an angel, changing up time, is named son. You got Anderson, Henderson, Robertson. They're telling you right there, the sons were always trying to function in this angelic component. They weren't completely matter because they weren't indigenous to the planet. But at the same time, because they had went through its matrix or womb or pentagram, they had taken the form of it. So when you say, what is a man? It's one who is mixed. The end is what is mixing it. So let's keep going here. So now that this is maybe clearing up just a little bit because I've used several words that sound similar to each other, I'm telling you once again that the language is in the astrology. It's in the stars. It's in the astronomy. And every time we get a controller, i.e. controller, position holder, when we're in their house, then we see them on the throne. So the papacy is all about Pisces. They know about papyrus because they're papists. They make paper. They cut roots of trees. So this is magic that was taught by, they felt the fallen angels taught man and woman, these things that were abhorred in heaven. Okay, this is what they're explaining. They're explaining that every astrological sign you come under the ruler. So the papacy, of course, is worshiping Dagon and under the Piscean symbol. And everything else they can pull in as what they claim their royalty and authority to rule the house. Until their time is over. So we are now moving out of that age, and this is also why the knowledge is coming to you now, because then these people were killing everyone talking like this. Period. Your people closest to you would tell on you. They would feel like it was a conviction in their heart from Jesus that they needed to tell on you in order for you to be possibly cleared up in afterlife somewhere. It was doing you a favor. So if you started talking that you were outside their religious structure, off with your head. Now, here's what the alchemists did, though. Because remember, alchemists worship Allah. That's the mystic order of the shrine. They're Shriners. They have, look at their symbol of the Shriners. It's a horn and a crescent moon, a pentagram. They're in the know. Their currency is bulls. Just like George Bush, before they became anything, they were cattle herders. That's how they picked up the knowledge of the mystic order of the shrine. So, what they did is that the alchemist was like, man, these people are crazy. They were in crusades. They got these crusaders. We got our assassins. Like Bin Laden's a Sufi assassin, by the way. He's very equipped. And they say, we got our insiders. But, this is, let's change this up a little bit. So, what we find now in our history is we find a covering up of the ancient knowledge in the ancient East and what they're still doing. As I said, the beast comes from the East. Well, who's the beast? The one with the horns. See, they keep demonizing it from you. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're demonizing it from you. They explain it to you, but then in a way where you can't really grasp what exactly is being said because there's so much fear around it. And because you can't enter fear, that's where you don't want to go, then you never get to the knowledge of the truth. So going on, what I'm saying is that, let me just get an anchor point really quick here. There are two forces in this world that go under the symbol of white and black. They are both the same. White and black are not even a color. They say black at least absence of color. They're telling you right there, it's not even a color. They cancel each other out. One is fire, one is water. The Luciferian spirits are of fire. The Jovian spirits are of water. And this is why the Catholic Church is the Jovian spirits, even though they have those that are defected to Lucifer, to Luciferian. Because later on they teach, and they told them they were going to have to do both. They said man's soul must be lost and won. So that's why on those extreme poles, if you look at what the Catholics are doing, and then you look at what the Luciferians are doing, they're like, nah, I don't really want to do what either one of them are doing. And I say, hey, I'm with you. Because they're both polarized. That's why they all the black and white flowers all the time and all this stuff. They're just telling you, they're polarized. Jacob and Boaz. They're yoked together. Two bulls. Bible. Cain. Who's Moloch? Cain. Moloch means Cain or king in Hebrew. It was who they chose to be king. And they show Moloch with furnaces inside of him. They say you should throw the baby in the furnace. Those furnaces were for smelting. It's all allegory. The furnaces were for smelting. He taught them how to form and fashion. He faced this. Form and fashion swords and plowshares and different things. And this was positive for man and negative for man. Now, I'll tell you also, this is some other key knowledge you have to know, the cross is the symbol of man. This is why when they show it, you feel like you must, you think it immediately associates with Christianity, because it really does, because Christianity is the religion that came forth where man became God. It's worship, people worship man as God now. The only problem is they think of man so lowly that it doesn't really work out. It's not enough power within it. So, man as God is the symbol of cross. Now, let me show you what the cross is. When you stand straight, notice how your arms are not positioned in the center of your body. Why? If everything on the body is symmetric, you got the body down the middle, everything is, you got a duplicate half on the left side. That's the other way you know you're living in a binary universe. So what happens is, why isn't our arms in the middle though? And if we stood up, would not then we see the cross if we made the center of our body a stick and then our arms a stick? It would be a little bit higher, right? So that's the symbol of the cross. And so this is why these core symbols are always used and taken over in the environment by the ruling astrological house. So it's time for us to stop being ruled from within, to set yourself up as you were in the crown. Because, see, if you're stuck in Taurus or the torso, I'm just walking you through Muladhara right now, there's a lot of bullshit going on, literally. You have to go through the wheel. All of these different entities and beings which are a part of you, you must ascend through them. Then you must take the seat in the crown and once again learn how to manage the entire kingdom. This is what your quest is. It's happening inside of you right now. Where you are stuck is in the kingdom that was least manageable by you. And this is also in the physical world why most people don't have much control, because they don't have much currency. Their currency is locked up. It's like, yeah, they got my money locked up. I'm in debt. That's because they got your Kundalini locked up. It's in bowels, meaning in the bowel area. Lords, meaning lowered, meaning to bring down. I lowered it down so that they can rule over them and wear a horn. And we would call it a crown. We're actually admitting to a certain degree that these individuals that are wearing the crown have their crown chakras open. But that's what they're showing you. When they wear a physical crown, they haven't achieved the physical external crown. Means you have not achieved the internal crown. And so that full lotus that opens up on the top of the head, you could feel it. You can wave it around a little bit. That's how present it is. So let me check the time here real quick. About an hour and 30 minutes within the conversation. Actually, We have, hour and 30 minutes in the show today. We have 38 more minutes, so I'm going to keep going. I was going to take a little break. Maybe I will in just a little bit, but I want to get through most of this. And again, you're going to have to rewind a lot of this because it's just going to fit in. These, like I said, it's a depth conversation. So these are the pieces that fit into everything, and then boom, the whole puzzle is realized. You realize extraterrestrials. You realize the whole thing. So I'm going to keep going. So here's the other situation now. What happened with the alchemists? Because we're like, well, when are you going to get back to the alchemists? What happened with the alchemists was that now the alchemists were those that were in society that were also responsible for shaping and fashioning the swords because they could transmute metals. But they believed, because they were all Masons, that their father was Moloch, Tubal-Cain, and a whole lineage of beings. Like everyone that came from that line, they believed, just like the Lamas and everyone believed, that these individuals are in their family. They did the same thing. So when the Pope and them rose forth, first fighting the Arabs, these individuals, the Mongolians, etc., started shaping and fashioning tools that were shaped like symbols that brought forth the entities that they had already made contact with. And let me go ahead and try explaining this once again. That what the alchemists were doing were already making spiritual contact. They were contacting fire beings. Some call them Luciferian beings. Lucifer is not one person, okay? It's multiple fire beings. So they were communicating with them. But if you were to communicate, how are you talking? Are you guys talking English? You're talking Sanskrit? So what you'll find out is that the two-dimensional beings did not communicate in words. They didn't have voice boxes. So they marked their symbols inside of circles, meaning that when they would bring forth and conjure up these entities inside the circle, then they would tell it identify itself by writing your name. So that way, if I call you again, I can write your name. So the entity that's the most it could do is scratch out its name. So thus, these alchemists, which later on became known as Masons, Master Mark Masons, had a language that evoked fire beings that they had already made contact with. And this is also what the Jesuits and the papacy were looking for. They wanted to get rid of these individuals on the Friday the 13th. Everyone's heard about it. They wanted to get rid of them and definitely sequester their knowledge so that, they can go and do their thing with it too. So the alchemists, which were then what we call now Jews, they had taken the knowledge from Egypt where they were doing the real alchemy. It's Kemet. That's where the alchemists, they had taken that. That's what Moses, who had horns, was in possession of. He was possession of the knowledge of the ark. The covenant or the agreement that was made between earth and the moon as a marriage. So he had that. And let me take just a moment here. There's a lot going through my brain right now. I'm seeing all the pictures at one time, as I said. Let me just grab an anchor point. Actually, okay, yeah, there's an anchor point. All right, here we go. Understand, to keep it all in there, to actually cipher through it all, it is vast. But indeed, you're complete. You're expanded. So what happens is these Master Mark Masons were keeping the symbols. Now, later, this was what they became later on, but before they were alchemists. So this is what happened. So when the Catholics and the papacy were running around basically crucifying everyone and everything, torturing even, which is another level, torturing, make sure you don't do it for 2 or 3 lifetimes. Your death is so horrible. And this is what Dr. William Baldwin C.V. uncovered, is that many of the dismembered beings that are in the netherworld have died tragically. And many of them are the ones from the Inquisitions. Because if the papacy thought that you were even more destructive than normal, then they would torture you more. So that way the next life, you wouldn't do it. And then the next life after that, you wouldn't do it. So that's what the death of torture is about. So what happened was is that these men hid the symbols of the entities within the shape of their tools. So when the papacy would come in on them and say, "What is all this?" And they would say, "Smeltering tools, my lord. We're smeltering your shields, my lord. We're smeltering your cups and your silverware, my lord. And then the Cappacier would say, carry on, carry on. Never knowing that the beakers, the tools, the tongs, and all that were shaped like the marks of the entities. That's how they had to preserve the knowledge. And I have these charts, by the way. Some people say, well, I don't know, that's a stretch. Well, you need to stretch then, because I have this. If you probably went over the city, especially of New York, with a special kind of light, you would see these marks and symbols everywhere. And in fact, the language is these marks and symbols. The energies pass through them. Fire is everywhere. Why? If you strike, it says it has as its ally oxygen. So, but if you strike anything, you can create fire. Right? So there's only three ways. They say if you want to understand the nature of fire, those who both begin with F, then it is the way fire is struck. Either with a hammer and it's blow to a stone, wood through friction rubbing together, or chemicals opposed to each other being combined and causing explosion. Thus you get the nature of fire. Meaning that this is the type of energy systems you're talking about. It's better to see it as elemental, brute force energy that needs to be governed by only ourselves, not by others. So here we go. Actually, this is a perfect time to take a little break here. What we're going to do is when we come back, we're going to go ahead and take some questions. If anyone wants to call in, the number is area code 347-996-5688. You can call in. If you press the number 1, I can see that you've called in. And then we can get some questions answered for everyone today. So we're just going to take, again, a little break here, and then we're going to come right forward. Fullness and balance, we are forward again. And we're going to go ahead and continue with the show. And as I said, if anyone wants to call in and ask questions, you can do so at area code 347-996-5688. What I do want to say is that, of course, because we're at the beginning, a lot of this stuff is really deep. What you have to understand is it's the foundation. Like, there's two sides to all of this. Like I said, there's a locked chakra, which is not functioning. And then there's an open, balanced chakra. Because if you look at all this, what are the positive sides of it? Our existence. If you've been brought forth and you've been given the opportunity to live a life, that's a gift, especially if you can manage that life. You have the strength that will always be with you of you enduring this situation. So in essence, you've gained your crown. You have many things that are being birthed from this. And that's why if someone chooses to take this knowledge and then make it negative only, because no person here on this planet is completely positive or completely negative. They're not configured that way. No matter how much they want to believe that they are one or the other, they're not configured that way. You're configured with both poles, whether you realize it or not. So it's when you understand that, look at what happens with a cow in a cow's waste. The cow's waste is used to fertilize plant life and to make plant life grow again. Why can't we use human waste to fertilize plant life? Because what humans eat the cow or the plant life can't even pull minerals from it. And I'm going to also get into another part of how to unlock the chakra. Because notice how meat became the number one thing everyone started eating. So they were doing the negative side. How are you going to eat the meat? You could just get the milk and the cheese if it's that necessary. But what happens is that individuals who choose to eat the matter get the blockage. And thus they become blocked. And that's why it says if you're passing something, they say, oh, I passed some stool. All these words are all used the same because it's all there. So that's why the controllers are in the society having individuals basically consume themselves. The real cannibalism. It's not just food, attitude, all sorts of stuff. Everyone wants to be seen, but no one has nothing really to say. Like no one's breaking into stuff that's new, that's going to be the answer and the solution for continuing to allow us to expand. Like we're already expanding. This is what's going on with the resistance. It's not something that we're talking about, I need to do this. No, this is something that we've already done. Now it's time to instruct people on how to do the same thing. It's different than the individuals who've taken off in their spaceships, meaning they got their shipment. They got stuck in one of the higher chakras on the wheels of time. And they said the first accompanying feeling with that is, I've arrived. This is when you first start learning that there is an actual power that can manifest into the physical plane from your body. And the first time you see that, then you think, I'm risen now to the level of God. That is the klipoa. We are always to be busy. Like, what would it mean if you always ascended and descended, like the Kundalini is supposed to, going through the chakras? This means that you are always really on the move through multiple situations. It's not anything to you, really. Meaning that whether you're on the low one or the high one, on the wheels of time, you're just, coming to drop the flowers. You're coming to clean the environment. You're housekeeping, basically. So now it's time for housekeeping inside. So when something is stuck, we can vibrate it loose. And that's why I said when you someone to tap on the base of your spine, and with the two fists, or the bottom part of the fist where the pinky is, you hold the fist like that and you just do a back and forth tapping like a piston. You start using that frequency the proper way. What happens is it shakes the energy. So it's literally like if you're in a jail, but the jail is made of stone, but the stone is about to collapse, then you're about to be free as long as you don't die because it collapsed on you. You need to get fit in the mind, body, and soul in order to be able to, when the realms open for you, we're not saying it's 2012, 12 o'clock. It would be a big letdown for everyone if nothing happened in 2012 at the end of the year, huh? Oh, man, well, you see the Matrix? Matrix is crazy. Something doesn't happen on that day. It's even 11:11 right now. I'm looking at the clock. But seriously, if something doesn't happen on that day, these people got everything hinged on that day. So I'm showing you that day is today. Like, here's root chakra, how you work with it. 1, colon cleanse. Get the colon clean. We have some products available on the site, or there's other sites that teach you how to do it for free. Either one. All the ones that we use are proven to do it. I've used it myself. It's been up for 30 years, the product that we use. So that's where it is. It's all put together. The instructions are there. The next thing is, this is where you get your grounding and your courage from. You have to get your legs strong. You have to be able to pull the load. Somebody says, man, this is too much for me. Well, you better get strong, huh? It's like, this is what this is about. Like, the people who backed away from it, they're still here. Now we can band together, get with those that are strong. Like, we pull this way with ease. It's funny. You have to understand even what the words mean. Then you see the other side of English. I told you, English is 26 letters. I was talking about people. I was just wondering if they were going to get it. 2, 3, 4 shows ago. 26 letters is English language. 52 weeks in a year. 26 plus 26, or 26 times 2 is 52, or 56. I'm sorry, 52 weeks in a year. So, where's the other half of English? Where's the other half of the wheel? It's in the mirror. Take the symbol, like for instance, if you draw A, draw this A, and then you draw another A underneath it, and make sure you put the cross on it. Now, slowly merge those two. What symbol does it make? A Star of David. What looks like the two Masonic vertices. The mark of Cain is what they call it. That's these two interlacing A's, because it's really a Star of David. You can draw the lines on it if you need to see all of that to know that it's there, but it's there. So that's what English is about. English has another side to it. And that, of course, comes out in society as we only see the upside of things. We only want to see the positive part. Don't want to go deep enough to clear things out. Notice in also when you utilize the products, cleans things out. You got to do some house cleaning. There is good bacteria. But this is your responsibility. Now, if you want to hang out here, I can tell you what, like it's going to switch over. And it looks like this giant that they have coming, one's going to need, if they're going to continue to persist here, I'll probably be here. I mean, it's all still it's easy from here. As they say, my yoke is easy. Look at the word say. You're a bull first. My yoke is easy. Even Jesus says he's a bull. He's got the crown of horns on. You know, my yoke is easy. My burden is light. So what's coming now is that giant from Orion. He's already been here. Like, that's the thing. Like, what happens with us is we're like on a time lag because it's also already happened before. So this is whenever we begin to realize that what's going on. Like, Earth acted out its zodiac already. So the forces, the first time it was acted out, the forces still remain. And every time they have to do this, the cosmic dance because of their original ascent into the planet. That's why they say some of the stars that you see, the lights that are burning, have been long gone. But you're still seeing the light because of the distance of time. Meaning when you look in the sky, there are certain lights that are there that will be burned out in about 200, even to 500, even to 5 million more years. It won't be there because they already left. But the streak of what they left is us. Meaning the story of what happened in the universal orchestra when it was played once still resonates to this world and creates this world. And that's why you see these small composites. You see small cows, you see now small cows, you see now even humans, you see ants. You see all this stuff. But when you would see it on the level that it really was in the beginning, which was not separated, okay? It was massive. So the less you can start, well, I guess, let me pronounce this right, but the less, my words are kind of mixed up here, but let me try to just clean this up a little bit. What happens is that the less you hinder yourself from, like, if I say, I know that ant on the ground is not separate, and I know those bulls on the field are not separate, and I know those trees over there are not separate, now I've actually come into a field of energy that is combined by those forces. Now, of course, it definitely takes practice. Like someone that I just did that, but nothing happened. Now, you have to do it on multiple levels. Like if you want to get a wheel unstuck, think about it. Like if a chakra is a wheel and you're stuck in time, you're like living the same thing every day. What happened? The wheel's broke. You're supposed to be rolling, man. You're supposed to be off somewhere. That's all engines and motors and circulation and turbines and toruses do. So what turned you in the wrong direction? And that's why I was saying, like, when you understand this geometry, you understand phi implosion, Widdershins versus diesel, meaning counterclockwise versus clockwise. When you understand that, then you understand how to go in and out of your existences. This is not something that's just being presented to mankind. This is something that's just being presented to you. Many people come into this in an entirely different way. They're realizing of the interconnectivity between everything, and then the quest is beginning to understand the unique characters within everything. But also having that hand up, like you see all the Hindu gods, they hold their hand up, meaning I have no fear. Meaning like, show me what you are, but don't think that I'm going to be so baffled that you're going to throw me into fear. Meaning that when you take knowledge from people, get the knowledge, but don't let them believe that you're at any point afraid of receiving knowledge. Because then one has made the action and the gesture for their own knowledge to be hindered, meaning that you commanded yourself not to receive the knowledge. Research. That's what the thing is. You have to research. Because if you lost something somewhere, you do the research. So let's go ahead and take some calls here. Caller from area code 203. I'm going to be opening up the line. We have 11 more minutes left in the call. Wholeness and Balance Vibration caller.
Hello?
Uh-huh.
Oh, great. This is Reg F. and Howard. How are you?
I'm doing exceptionally well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm glad to be on your show. my question was, you spoke about the matrix, and I was thinking, if words and ideas and thoughts are the essence of creation, could the matrix be located in the consciousness of universal thought?
Your matrix can. Like, the thing is that what happens with matrices is because it takes so many different components to make up a matrix, it's several cells, for better lack of words, of experiences. So you're talking about something that's so vast that you could even be in one part of it. Like a child is inside of the mother's womb, but we're inside of the universe. So at times we feel like we have expanded into the universe, but we're still inside of the womb. But what is the whole process of being in a womb? It's where they can't really release you into the next thing until you've been developed properly in order to handle it. So I would suppose right off the bat that whoever could even control things like that, meaning controlling what kind of shape you come out as, there will be no real level of us controlling them. You see what I mean? It's like it's already running on autopilot. It's like this is how we're being created. So when you start looking into it deeper, you realize that there's more geometry than just what has been revealed on this planet. Now, of course, the geometry I'm talking about is what you get when you measure trees, when you measure things that the earth generates, like the crystals. When you measure those things and you see the shapes behind that, I'm not talking about Pythagoras' stuff that he's drawn up, so people don't get the wrong idea when I say geometry. But what it does say is that there's certain shapes and things that are being used, but also what it shows is that there's other things in between that, stuff that has not been written down. And this is also why we become we're such powerful beings, because we can access that, meaning that you can access what is not here. What kind of sense does that make from a person that's just trying to be logical? But realistically, like I said, if that song comes from you and you develop it, when it comes out of you first time into 3D, you've now basically run your complete course of understanding how to create something. So then when we start to examine that something more, I guess that's when we're going to get really the real language, because when you're trying to examine it, so let's talk about examining it in the mind, like going into that space. Like some people like to go into meditation and go into these spaces of this kind of interaction. What I'll say is that what happens with the body, and I really like to get to the point when it comes to vibratory frequency and really when the faculties start to turn on, because it's a vivid feeling. That's why anybody that has generally dealt with spiritual energies or whatever, it was a very vivid experience. The subtle stuff, it can always be written off as some type of phenomenon, but there are vivid situations. So I'll say that when the chakra turns on, there becomes a vivid interaction, especially the first chakra, because it's controlled by material. So you really start seeing stuff move around in your physical reality. I'm not talking about entities. I'm talking about things that have been blocking your way, bulls, as they block your way, or Canaan is the other term. But these are things that are the stomach blocks. So then but the visual part of it, to really be able to access, let's say, the Maya, I will then give it that term. That's why Maya begins with Ma. And then Ya is, of course, the fire force, the father. So to really be able to access Maya for what it really is, you definitely need to be using more petals. Like you have to be using that crown chakra thing. And then you'll see it then. It's like not even something that is thought about. It's like you walk literally into it. And so hopefully that should clear things up. I'm just saying the way to access that plane, the real one, generally takes a certain kind of optics. And if you notice that your chakras are eyes. So when I say optics, I'm saying if you're looking from your Dantian chakra, it only can see certain things. That's why they label it as how many petals it has on the lotus. This would be like how high is the pixelation or the definition on the screen. That's how it kind of would turn out to us. So in order to see Maya for what it really is, the crown chakra has to be completely open, and then that's how they say, then you see Maya for what it really is, an illusion. But, of course, down on the lower levels, you can't see Maya as an illusion, especially on a serpent level, which is you're actually grounded through gravity. The magnet of this planet, the core of this planet is iron, which is, of course, the symbol Phi, which is where we get female from. So that magnet, that womb, that matrix, pulls in things from the universe. See? And so what is pulling into us, though? Like, instead of taking it through that kind of visual, what is pulling into us? Attraction. The moment we're attracted to someone, we get a little closer. It's like, let me get over there. So it's the same thing. And so this is much more akin to the kind of magnetism that Earth is using versus what you would see with two metallic rocks that we know that have been magnetized. So I'm not sure if that gets the whole thing for you, but do you have some more questions?
Yes, I do have another question. The binary code you were speaking of, a really interesting thought came to my mind. The word why, because I know you like to play with words, and the number one. They both seem very infinite. They just go on and on. You can ask the same why question about anything, and it never ends, and neither does the number one. And they both create. You know, why answers questions, leads to info, and we don't have to say anything about the number one. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, just curious about both of those, but more so, since you play with words, where does the why fit into it? Which is kind of funny that I'm asking a question about why.
The why is known as the nail. It's basically, of course, in Kabbalah, they say it's what sticks things together. So this probably would be where you kind of have to make a jump. You believe something is a certain way, but you kind of have to assume a couple things. So this is also goes on in our mind. It's like when we're trying to figure out why something is going on, we stretch it a little bit. So that's basically whying our mind. Now, a why is also a wheel. And, of course, one, we see one. Now, it's interesting because our terminology of words and letters and numbers, which are really symbols, will vary based on how we think, like how expansive we really are. So the average person, when they see a one, they just see a straight line or a stick. A three-dimensional person sees a tube. And then when he turns the tube over, he sees a circle. And then when he sees that circle, he sees a wheel. So he knows that a wheel is going to continuously turn, and that's why the one is continuously multiplying off of itself, the same thing. It's generally the next component, which is the dual. When they see the dual component, that's when you start to see the unbalance. So that's why numbers like 1, 3, basically the odd numbers. The odd numbers seem to turn like a wheel, while the even numbers don't. And this is the difference between a curve and a straight line also. So this kind of binary yin and yang thing going on multiple levels, because remember, we can talk about weather like that. We can also talk about it from its third component, too. Some people now from its fourth component mean that you can talk about fire and water, yes, and we can divine great knowledge from it. But what if someone starts talking about steam? Now, what they're saying, and then how many more things are going to be birthed from that? This is actually what is going on in our mind, in our whole creation, is every time you add on another component, you're going to, of course, get its child. So you can't try to define what you were just explaining before by the child, because it's going to contain the variation of whether the two were when they were combined. So now there's nothing but combining going on. It's just like what you see under the microscope with the DNA. The DNA is constantly eating information, and then it's birthing something behind it. It's storing it and mixing it with other stuff and keep generating it. So obviously that's what the universe wants to do. I think that's what people should really get. If you're standing in front of the universe, it will roll you over. It's not going to say, oh, stop the universe. Hey, could you move up? It's a whole other thing. So that's what they say. Even the gods couldn't stop what the universe was going to do. They weren't foolish like that. They realized that they either got with the program or the same thing was going to keep happening to them that had already happened. Think about what's happening to us. This has happened several times already. It had to happen several times in order for some of the trees here to be as big as they are. So life has been going on for a long time. But who are the spirits getting incarnated in here, and where do they really come from? Are they really so separate? No, they're showing that they're all being spat out of really the same womb. Let's call that just the Taurus constellation, Pleiades, the seven sisters, the most beautiful being Maya. I always say that because people have to understand why when they really think they're the highest being and they would have never got caught up in this, think about the captivation of the most beautiful entity. And then think if you have become strong enough to be able to resist something like that. That's what Maya or the illusion really is. It's the eye that is decorated. And that's why they show the eye of Ra is the eye of the womb. It was really I got some feedback going on here, but it's really the eye. if we look at just these words that they keep putting A's on, ma, ra, ta, ka, ba, obviously if we just start walking through those words and just getting the full definition of what they mean, it would lead us to the language, it would lead us to the core of how to create worlds. And I will tell everyone, if you don't call in now, the phone is about to disconnect in about 60 seconds, but I'm going to keep going with this just for about 10 more minutes. Area code 347-688. You got a minute to call in if you're in the chat box, but you still want to hear the rest of this conversation. So continuing, if you notice again that when you add the A, when you have the A and then you add another letter onto it, you get these core vibrations. But what you really get is me. This is the only word that the people still have some type of knowledge or reference for. And the me, or the M-E, as it's called now in the Sumerian, was the knowledge of how to create worlds. But if you understand Hebrew, you understand that there's really, E means energy. It's 3 straight lines. So you can remove that and go to the core, which is M. That's how they do words. That's why there's no vowels in these ancient languages. They go to the core word, and M is a core word. So when they say that in Sumerian that Inanna got a hold of the M-E, Inanna, or the female, got a hold of the knowledge of how to make a matrix. But it's not just that. She is the matrix. See, that's what people, they're like thinking that, okay, now she's carrying this thing around. No, she is, actually, yeah, she is really carrying it around, but she's carrying it inside of her. And this is how on the big scale, the macroscope, you see a woman with the child still going through its development. And then it's birthing inside. Like you notice how if you go and you see when a woman starts to go through her first months of pregnancy, etc., there's several stages of life right there. But we're fools for thinking one of those stages is not alive and not some type of entity within itself. It's just the continuous stages. And so we get to watch this from different standpoints in time based on what chakra you're living in. So, of course, this is a certain standpoint of time where you can see a fly die in 3 days. While if you were that fly, you would be dying in 3 days. You see what I mean? So on these different wheels of time, i.e. the chakras, now they have to be open here. This is what we still demark as the difference between the activation and the non-activation. The opening of the chakra is indeed vivid. Like the throat chakra, when opening, it almost feels something to the nature of, and it doesn't hurt, but it's like a drill. You feel a constant spiral within the throat area that even kind of tickles. It's a vivid feeling. Likewise, popping in the head is definitely a sign of opening up of the region. So we know that there's an actual physical response to when opening a chakra. So if we don't see those physicals, nobody in the Eastern teachings that were attempting to try to ascend from the beast, basically, then no one was imagining that it was open and it wasn't. Everyone was just trying to figure out how to open it. This is the difference between their world and our world. In our world, we have ego, so we assume we're already arrived. We're already flying. We're already in crown chakra. But these individuals already knew that they're going to have to work and toil for it. So that's why they stay in prayer and stay doing stuff to themselves that makes them feel like they're carrying the burden. So what's happening for us is that now, because of course the Western world has added, which is also a component in this whole Ma and West and W and M, what, when, where, why, and all that. This is another component to it. It's the upside down M. This means that they didn't want to just shake you. They wanted to wrap and roll you. They didn't just put you on the dimension with M. They put you also on the dimension with the other side of M. This is so you would know that the matrix has 2 sides. Now, of course, many people don't want to see that side of the matrix, and I said part of that is because they only function on half of the language which they speak English. But that other side is when nighttime, basically. There's a night side to the entire thing. So this was always developed to serve as motivation to us to just basically always remain in control of the light, what is light and darkness to us, be able to generate our own light and darkness. And this is also where the lucid dreaming comes in, because you start realizing, especially once you start building up the Kundalini, you start realizing it's literally fuel. As this prana is like fuel for your dream body. Like whatever it is, it needs that as fuel, and that controls how many of these other frequencies and realms that it can go into of experience. But at this point, your journey is very guided, meaning that you are very sure of where you're going when you get to that stage of the actual process of just the travel. But of course, the root chakra is the key because it's the hearth. It's like the fire that is burning. It's basically burning up all your waste, just like a rocket ship. There's waste coming out the back. So by burning up the fuel. So the top chakras are really burning up the fuel. Now, how this plays in their society is that the controllers are always burning up the fuel, meaning that it seems that they're doing all this stuff and they're burning out the fuel, and then we have to handle the waste. So this is how the body is also configured. The body on the top, there's no waste going on up, like I talked earlier, there's no waste going on up here in the body. They don't handle it. They send it all to the downstairs. So of course, who's down there? The mass. And that's why M, and then there's ass back there. What is the ass? It's the booty. So the mass and just the whole act of carrying a burden and being a flesh. Now I told you flesh again is meat. It's mate. So that's kind of the relationship. And this is when you close the whole book with just that symbol of those two triangles interlacing each other. Because all of the story is what we're now living in. It's like if someone says, Mom, what happened when the world came together? Like you open this book with this symbol on the front, and then you say, this is how it worked. And then the stories in between of the different lives of people and how they come to realize, and the wars and the conflict, was when the two opposing forces met. Now, I'll say this in conclusion. How this world was generated is that first, there was already a body in our system. Many people say that body was Saturn. They're saying that the sun's father is Saturn, and Saturn's an androgynous planet. They're saying that the heat of what we're now calling Earth, basically what Earth began to do is Earth began to develop this heat from a trajection of a seed from this planet. That's why the root name of Saturn is Cedar, meaning like it just had a seed, and then the seed was ejected into this universe or universe as I call it, and then it had to develop on its own. And the first thing, though, is because of the vacuum of space, it needed to keep itself warm. So the first thing it did is it boiled down to its center. If you can imagine, space is cold, so Earth as a living being balled up and kept all of its heat within. Many people say that this is also when many of the entities like serpents and whatever had already started living in the earth, if you want to get like a today's story about this. But Earth, I see then, as it's explained in the ancient books, was never conscious of any separation. So what really makes devoid that there were any separate beings living during that time. And so Earth, continuously balling itself up, begins to become this ball of heat. So the heat was then amplified by what we're calling the sun. What arrived in our system was the sun, known as air. And when air and heat came together, now notice, because heat is a different component. But when air and heat came together, it produced the flame. And this is also why today, if you light fire, you fan it, and the air produces a flame. So then Earth became this basically glowing ball of heat. Now, the next move for Earth was to develop basically a bubble so that it could basically shield itself from this vacuum of space. So they're saying what happened next is that the bubble was developed when the moon came into the system. This is what I was explaining earlier. That the moon, actually, excuse me, I'm a little twisted here a little bit on the story. What happened was is that with the Earth, as in its development, had already developed the sphere. But it was basically a sphere of fire. And then when the moon entered into our orbit, it broke that fire. Now here's why you know, because this may sound a little far off, but here's why you know the Earth was a ball of heat. What is a one moon? It's a ball of heat. It's an incubator. It's there to keep the baby warm. So that's what Earth was first. And then, but we're still talking about like on a pre-planetary level, when the moon entered in, it caused the cold to then touch this heat and this fire that had already been generated on Earth, and that created water. And now, many people think that we weren't created, or souls weren't created from water and life was not created from water. But this is why they always say that this life is created from water, because the water then is totally different than the water now, of course. But what stage do you arrive in first when you hit the egg? And if a person doesn't know, they just need to take an egg in the refrigerator and crack it in half. It's liquid. So that liquid was what was continuously, as you see, became the development of life. And I'll just only talk about the next stage, which was the next stage, is that there became developed on this planet a super sentient race that was androgynous, but very similar to plant life, basically thinking trees. And this is why the knowledge that they teach, especially within the Kabbalah, etc., stems back to the Sephiroth in the tree of life. So at this point, these non-divided sentient tree entities, etc., were the beings that were beginning to drop their seeds for the continuous cross-pollination. And that's why they use the bees as a symbol and other beings that pollinate as a symbol. Begin to cross-pollinate, thus developing more life. The intelligent life of the planet, the first round, they say, when they passed from this planet, because this planet, it has a decay process. That's the difference between, the other beings, the gods, etc. They don't die versus the demigods, which suffer death because the planet has a death and a birth again. So the first round of beings, they say, when they died, they went to the moon. And this is why what humanity is going to find out is that all of these organizations and what they're doing, they evoke from the moon first. And this is why in every religion, especially Islam and Christianity, the angel is Gabriel, who is also the angel of the moon, comes and tells this individual things to start the religion. Now, there's one excerpt that I want to read because I just really want to close this show out the proper way. There's one excerpt I want to read about, let's see if I can exactly find this bookmark here. I'm sure I can. But this is very important information in regards to the ancient. See, I closed my panel page here. But in regards to the ancient knowledge, which is really what we're here to extract. From the Abjad, which is the Hebrew Kabbalah, which is the Arabic Kabbalah, which not many people have access to or know about. It talks about what's next. Like, remember, during this show, I just told you A and B, so I told you about the binary worlds, but of course, it ran the whole cycle, so there's another world after this. And I'm going to prove next week, or probably the week after, I think next week, because I'm going to do the Olympian show, or Olympic show, and it fits right in perfectly. Starts the third letter, known as, in Arabic, Jinn, which actually means spirit. But in the runes, it means giant. And in Hebrew, it's also synonymous. So it's showing that after the birth of these beings that came through these large matrices, the next thing that happened was these giants, which is Jinn. Now, I'm going to read one passage that I just wanted to make sure I got recorded somewhere live so that people could get the knowledge some way, somehow. I want to read something about an encounter between Muhammad and this angel. It says, Muhammad used to retire in the cave of Hira for contemplation. And then one day, suddenly, the truth descended upon him while he was in the cave of Hira. The angel came to him and asked him to read. And the prophet said, I don't know how to read. The prophet added, the angel caught me forcefully and pressed me so hard that I could not bear it anymore. He then released me and asked me to read, and I replied, I do not know how to read. Thereupon he caught me again and pressed me a second time till I could not bear it anymore. He then released me again, asked me to read, but again I replied, I do not know how to read, or what shall I read? Thereupon he caught me the third time and pressed me and then released me and said, read in the name of your Rab, who has created all that exists, has created man from a clot. Read, and your Rab, Lord, is most gracious. Now, what I want to show people here, just to get you to see the errors that are being made by masses of the planet, is two things here. First of all, anyone who knows this story, because this is in the Quran, anyone who knows the whole story of Islam, they know that Muhammad was married to Fatima, an older woman who married Muhammad because he was good with numbers. And because Fatima was a wealthy businesswoman, this was a perfect match. But also, if anyone knows, in Arabic, the letters are the numbers. So thus, if you're good at all with numbers, you're definitely good with conversation and reading. So why is Muhammad, which is in the Quran, saying that he couldn't read? So this means that something else was going on, is all I'm trying to get people to say. Obviously, I mean, the whole tone of this thing is something else is going on, but people are not seeing it for what it is, as the truth, as it's calling itself, descends upon one of the individuals that become the cornerstone to the largest religion in the world. So what happens is that how many times does something that you can't see need to grab you and slam you to the point where you cannot bear it before you just do whatever it tells you? So we're seeing here that there was actually a physical thing going on between Muhammad and Jibril, and the Jibril making Muhammad do something. So this is just what I wanted to leave, especially with people who can pass information like this along to these believers, as they call themselves. That Jibril is the angel of the moon, and it is a crescent moon. And the moon gods are very forceful, and the sons of the moon are also very forceful too. And these are the ones that descended the tree. These are the ones that are not allowed beyond the heavens. But you are. You didn't have directly anything to do with this. You are the product of it. Just like steam is the product of fire and water. But surely steam is not fire. Unless steam comes to the conclusion and learns how to transmute itself back into fire, it remains steam. So what we do have to do about a lot of what's been going on with our past and what's been happening, because I'm sure this spoke on multiple levels to individuals today, is, first of all, be very diligent and strong in knowing that you're getting the answers that you need. Meaning that if you don't get the answers that you need, be forceful at getting those answers. Because as you see, I just named 2 letters of the alphabet in an entire story of how it entwines with this planet. So it should serve to encourage you, because it means that there is an actual quote-unquote adventure here. And I use that term just in that many of us still have that, because I'm talking about the 1 to 7 years old. Fearless. It was an adventure until life showed you the horns. Now you do have to put that under check and learn how to actually use it, like the strength of the bull was then used to plow the field. This is when you take your sexual nature and learn how to make it so that it powers the body. That's all it ever meant. And that's the conclusion of really what I wanted to say, unless the sister had another question, is to understand that when they showed you that symbol back in the day, if you knew what it really meant, and they showed you the horns, it meant strength and the burden and never forgetting the past so that we didn't have to repeat it. That the foundation was solid. It was built firm. It was built on the backs. Now, like I said before, I was saying the cow jumping over the moon should make more sense now to people. It was built on the backs of beings that already run that part. And that's what I think also the ancestors are saying. Look, there's a lot of this we already went through for you. For you to have to go through it in order to see you're not supposed to be there, that is what we taught you already. And that's because we taught you through us and our experience. And so we can get right into the control point of this. Like I said, is again, getting back into the body, tightening up the vehicle, cleaning out the filters, alkalizing the system, adding the proper minerals into the body so that the fluid is right. And then at that point, you'll see, just like I see every day of my life, there's no limitations. So I wanted to say wholeness and balanced vibration to everyone. I also want to say thank you to the sister for calling in. I don't have access to my panel. In fact, let me just log into it really quickly. I actually closed it down to open up the window to read that short passage. Actually, since we have a couple more callers, let's see what those callers got to say. Caller? You were on the 2012 show. Yeah.
Hello?
Uh-huh.
Hey, how you doing? This is Double O Cosmos, Coach from the Scales.
Okay, I'm not sure if Double O line is You may have, I think you're going to need to either call on the phone because I think there's a slight lag on there. So let's see if he's going to fix that. And we're going to take caller 786. Caller, you're on the 2012 show, Wholeness. Okay, it doesn't even look like the panel is actually working anymore. Actually, hello, 786, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I do hear you. There's been, panels.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to, is it the fight between the Taurus and the Scorpio exactly? Because I'm a Scorpio, and I kind of feel like you're speaking exactly to me right now. So can you speak as far as, I'm still trying to get, more understanding on this whole zodiac wheel thing in existence. So
Okay.
can you speak to me as far as the opposites, being a fixed sign, a Scorpio and stuff, so, I'm trying to figure that out.
Okay, let me just go over that really briefly. I'm going to see if I can take about 4 more minutes and explain this just from in text of the time period that we're living in. If you see that they basically said the area which we call Egypt and Lower Egypt, or Lower Egypt is Upper Egypt as far as how it's positioned on the map. So where the pyramids are is known as Lower Egypt. That is the underworld. The area that we call Ethiopia, Somalia, or Nubia, that entire area is known as Upper Egypt, just so everyone is clear on that. I had some situations going on where people were like, well, it's really Upper Egypt is really here. So people understand that as the first map of the universe on Earth because of how the Nile was situated with the Milky Way, etc. You'll see that there was a constant back and forth going on between Upper and Lower Egypt. So basically this is the two triangles. And then there's one group of basically animal beings or one side of the zodiac, and then there's another side of the zodiac, right? And so you may have the wolf and the bear and the lion on one side, and then on the other side, the bull, the snake, and you see what I mean? So you have these two different forces or multiple forces on different sides. Now, of course, what's happening on a level of metaphysics is that all of these are energies that need to conflict in order to generate more of what's going on in reality. How this is happening even when man and woman are playing the toy soldier mode and going to war with each other is you have the Scorpion King raising the entire Egypt and uniting the empire but going to war and basically destroying any opposing force. And then you watch Ra, who's really the same being, doing the same thing again, just continuously routing the place to unite the people after a long conflict under one flag. And that's known as the ram running forth because, of course, to run through soldiers and all that kind of stuff is not an easy task. You need a great deal of strength. And that's what also shows us about Alexander the Great and why he ended up staying in Egypt for a prolonged period of time was because he had two horns on his head. It's all in the manuals. Everyone, or in the encyclopedias, everyone knows he was dual cornated, the Great Two-Horn. So he took his kingship and sat on the throne in Egypt because of having the right of going and conquering the entire world. But these are, again, war gods, the birth of what is coming from Mars. And as I said, the other planets do come in conjunction, especially those that start with the M with each other. Mars is the Red Sea. Mars is also the bull. Mars is also why they say Moses, he parsed the waters. This is the same individuals that are responsible for really misinterpreting a lot of the knowledge, or definitely those who practice the Judaistic tradition, change the knowledge. And what this allowed us not to see is that Mars, when Moses parsed his water, what they're saying is that Moses went through the Martian initiation. He went through the matrix. He learned the laws that were the rules and the edicts from Egypt also. And so how this, again, would really come into play with our zodiacal sign is that we have to realize that if you plan on changing your destiny, then you have to have the ability of changing your zodiac. Because first of all, your zodiac would equate to your destiny. So the question comes to the person is, can you change your zodiac? Because then you can change your destiny. Now, we're all about changing destiny, especially when we figure out where certain roads are really going. And so this gives you the framework, or at least the codes that are necessary in order to convince your mind, body, and soul that it doesn't need to continuously run the same part of the wheel, that it can...
Yeah, I get you. It's collapsing on me so much, man. I go by the name, last name is Delma, which means of the sea. It's the information is so much over my head and stuff. I'm just getting it. So I thank you. I definitely thank you.
You're more than welcome. I mean, it's definitely a massive time for us all as far as getting the information. And look at even the words, massive and maxed. Like when a person I'm maxed out, that means that's the most that you can get. It's Ma with a 10 on it, meaning matrix entering the 10th age, which is the 0 and the 1. When Yod, or God, who is 10, comes forth, when man starts to worship a machine, when he lives in a program suffice, meaning that there was never enough, we didn't unpack enough in the 3D in order for it to be a cultured environment yet. And we're flatly eradicating what was unpacked. Because remember, the ancients said they came with the ark. What do you think those fallen angels, they say they came from the moon, Anunnaki, Enki, where Enki is, of course, who they really worship in Masonry and all those different organizations. But what do you think they brought with them in the ark? The seed germ, the root of life. Then they show the flower of life, the germ of creation. But what creations, though? Because we know they're not everything. That's already been proven. Like, as I talk about the joke where a person says that they're going to create, a magician says he's going to create the world. He tells God, I know how to create the world. And then God says, okay, show me tomorrow. And God and the magician get out there, and then the magician says, okay, first you take dirt. And then God says, hold on, get your own dirt. It's like you still have to understand how this stuff even got made to begin with in order for you to say that you're a creator. Other than that, there's still the construct, and this is why we should be in certain tenses, especially being alive, being able to breathe, being able to get this knowledge, jubilant. We should always be happy. That alone, just to have the ability to read and write. See, I will tell you that in a lot of the ancient texts, especially, not even the ancient texts, but things such as the Quran and the Bible, there's a lot of deep knowledge in there. But it's the same thing as what I've watched just occur, and this is something else that I want to bring up in regards to religion. And different spirits, different gods, etc. Just because something happens, i.e. a miracle, and there is a being there for you to accredit what it came through, what happened, doesn't mean that being is God. Because what's actually happening, because I've been getting under the framework of what is tying a lot of people to these religions, is that they have had a situation where someone was sick. Maybe they were even sick. And most of the time physically. And they've prayed for some level of deliverance. And then they were at sometimes even vividly able to see themselves delivered. And then they accredit that delivery not to their own will, which is when you have an extreme will to be delivered, then you're willing to basically ask the invisible for it. Because that's what you're doing. God is invisible on this planet. So as far as how they worship in a religion. So that kind of intention alone is from a human being with a chakra center is enough to make anything happen. So this is also what's become many people's trap. They think, well, the time that my mother got healed was because that's when we did the prayer with Jesus and Jesus came and healed her. It's more massive than that. And then it's ethereal. And so I just wanted to point out this last thing, that the netherworld, the root chakra. Okay, so let me just explain this one more time. The lower area where the feet are. I had a little chart. Here it is. Okay, so the lower area where the feet are, before we end this conversation today, people should understand are the animalistic natures, the force, the elementals, fire, mainly fire and water. Most things are a product of that. Remember, even the water starts to become a seed germ in itself. So fire and water. Then you have these two opposing forces, Catholics and Luciferians, Jovians and Luciferians, fire and water, white and black, and they're both doing the same thing. And that's why they're both the Illuminati. If people didn't catch that also earlier, the Catholics are the Illuminati. That's what people say, oh, there's Illuminati Jesuits. And then they always say the Lucifers, they're Illuminati. Right, because Illuminati just means to be illuminated. That proves it right there. So both of these factions are in the know, is what they're saying. They know about the secret to the societies. So you got the middle planes. So also, here's another key to point out, that it is because they just have mastery over the root chakra. That's why they always utilize the cons and the canes and the horn gods and all that stuff in their symbolism, because that still allows them to be over the animals. And so if they can get humans to act like animals, then they can be over them. This is the simple thing. If all of this conversation of what I said goes over your head, that one part will let you know everything. They just want to convince you to be on that lower level so that they can stand on top. And so now, then they're stuck though. Remember, the queen is stuck in her castle. She can't go out to the mall, and it doesn't happen. So, because, see, that crown that they're wearing is heavy. It's too heavy for them. This is also why you see that the strength is also a little tricky, because if you have to have strength, this means that you put yourself under some kind of burden. And then if for some reason you can't carry that burden anymore, your head hangs low. And so that's really what's happening even within the hierarchies of this world, is that they stopped being able to manage Earth really a long time ago. So now it's time for us to get into the managing of ourselves. And that's really where all this leads to. So hopefully, sister, that gives you a very deep insight on what you need to know about just this next part of the path. And I always say that there's so much even beyond this as we even begin to walk through these letters. I'm sure some of them are the same. I'm sure we'll maybe find out there's really 9 letters, but this is it. This is the beginning.
Thank you. I've been going over the study. I haven't been able to join the classes. I've been on the website listening to the MP3s over there on Reverb Nation. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. No doubt. Okay, so I did want to say to everyone, wholeness and balanced vibration. Like I said, we're doing the groups every week, so if you have something to say or you want to get something off your chest, then you can definitely do that on those conversations. You can go one-on-one with getting your questions answered. And I do want to also say thank you to all the individuals that have supported the resistance, all the moderators, all those that are working in different corners of the earth. We also have some individuals coming down. We're going to be shooting a lot of video. John's coming down. Luis is coming down, and we're definitely going to be doing that as live as possible. So once again, I want to say thank you to everyone, and I say stay tuned for next week's show. I'm probably going to do a special show on the Olympians, and then, of course, we have an incredible cymatic project coming up, so I'll be letting people know about that soon.